Welcome to Mediascape, Insights from Digital Changemakers, a speaker series and podcast brought to you by USC Annenberg's Digital Media Management program. Join us as we unlock the secrets to success in an increasingly digital world. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Mediascape, powered by the University of Southern California's Master of Science in Digital Media Management program. Today we are joined by a very dear friend, Arra Yerganian. Arra has a long background as a chief marketing officer for such amazing organizations as One Medical, Sutter Health, and the University of Phoenix, to name just a few. As part of his pivot into transforming education and being part of that ongoing evolution and journey towards where we all want to go and help our students grow into the people that we know that they can be. He is also on the President's Council at Cal Poly University in San Luis Obispo, and he's on the Dean's Board at Boston University's School of Public Health. We're also very proud that very recently he has joined us as part of our Industry Advisor Council at the Digital Media Management program at the USC Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism. Arra, thank you very much for being with us and welcome.
Thank you, Joseph. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Arra, as we begin our conversation today, here's what I'd love to ask you. What's the most important thing that as a chief marketing officer you're focused on each and every day?
So thank you for that question, Joseph. I have to go back a few years. I was lucky enough to grow up in Boston and went to Boston Latin School. It's the oldest public high school in America. It was founded in 1635. In fact, we had 13 signers of the Declaration of Independence who went to Latin school. People like Sam Adams, John Hancock, Robert Treat Paine, Charles Bulfinch, and others. And through that 6-year journey, 7th grade through 12th grade, I had a little dog-eared piece of paper that I had taped to my desk lamp that I changed the words of about halfway through. It first said, "Hard work plus desire equals success." After about 3 years of toiling through hard work, I crossed out, literally scratched out the word hard and used the word smart instead. And I recognized probably when I was in 9th or 10th grade that I needed to change my ways to be most effective. So translating then into sort of the business world, I've often thought, I think the most transformative thing that I can be as a leader in the marketing field is to break away from the sea of sameness. It's so easy to get trapped in doing things that your predecessors have done or that other companies in the space have done. It takes sort of a bold initiative to think outside the box and break away from that sea of sameness.
Thank you very much for sharing that insight. At school, sometimes we talk about the purple cow theory and thinking about how to be unusual, even if on the surface it might look just a little bit strange. Now the question I want to ask is, how can that marketing story influence or inspire the product that you are tasked with selling?
So I'm a big believer in research, insights, and segmentation, understanding the marketplace before just diving in. It's funny, when I set up marketing organizations in companies, big or small, it's remarkable to me how rooted they are in just getting it done, as opposed to taking a giant step back first to understand the landscape, the dynamics of the market they're in, what influences there are in that market force. So for me, it's understanding that audience, understanding the market, before you then sort of generate your big, bold idea that's going to drive you in the right direction. That's the fundamental way, I think, to break through and sort of set that foundation to think differently.
Let's pivot for a second. Many of our students dream of becoming you, quite frankly, being a chief marketing officer for a prominent company in an industry that matters to them. For our students who are in graduate school, they're thinking about their capstone projects, thinking about how that capstone project can launch them into the direction they want to go. Is there any advice that you could share for these 20 and 30, sometimes 40 and 50 somethings, but who are really dreaming of heading in this direction of becoming a chief marketing officer one day? What should they be focused on? What should they be working on?
So it sounds trite, but I really do believe that communication is ultimately the greatest skill one can have, both through oral and written communication. Really pivotal in ensuring that you can get people to join your tribe and be part of the movement. And I would encourage any student of any age to understand sort of their own why, what makes them shine, and then use that superpower, if you will, to describe how their idea, how their point of differentiation matters. And people will lean in. If you take that moment to try to help people get encouraged about the reason to believe, they'll lean in. Whether you're new to an organization, new to the field, whatever it may be, if you lean back on the experiences you've had in the classroom, in life, and start crystallizing those points of differentiation, they become really interesting tidbits that help fuel your life story.
I can't tell you how moved I am hearing you say this and how much I appreciate it. One of the very first lectures that we go through in our program is the why assignment. And what we talk about is how, at its best, the company that you're working with or perhaps founding and your professional why and mission statement is closely aligned with your own personal why statement and personal mission. So that when you walk into a room, you walk into an interview, people can tell, they know. Can you talk about how to make sure that your personal why statement can and should be aligned with your professional why statement?
Sure. Listen, at the end of the day, I think individuals have to remain authentic. You can't make it up. You can't fake it. You can't manufacture something that's not really truly at your core. Certainly people mature, they grow, they change their thoughts and ideas. But once you sort of land on the reasons that you're motivated to do what you do, even if you're selling widgets, it doesn't have to be for cause or for purpose. If you're passionate about that product and how it can help change the world or impact people's lives, it's easy to lean in and have those conversations with people.
Let's pivot and talk a little bit more nuts and bolts. Let's just say you're hired to be the chief marketing officer of a new company. Give us the 1, 2, 3 of how you think about marketing and selling that product to an audience.
So, look, it's not formulaic. I think each situation is different. And I always look ahead, never disparage those who've preceded me, because it's so important to learn from the experiences they've had. You may be new to the company, but they've been around for a while. You may have a new point of view, but they've obviously had success. Maybe you need to take them in a different direction. So that's why understanding, as I said earlier, sort of the insights that drive some of the decision-making so you can be fact-based and rational in the way you think, I think will help unlock that process. But I'm sure we'll talk about this more, but I do believe you need to be bold. You need to break away from whatever the conventional wisdom is that helps you identify sort of a path forward, and then get people excited about the movement that you're creating. So I always say to organizations, small or large, advocacy starts from the inside. To get anybody on the outside motivated to do something, to buy a product, make a change in their life, join a movement, the people on the inside have to be singing from the same song sheet. So I often focus on that internal marketing challenge to get people really energized. Because once you do that well, you'll have advocates who can really step out and do some remarkable things for your organization.
I want to ask you a simple, right from the heart question. Why do you love marketing and why is it important?
So, storytelling is near and dear to my heart. And I feel that one can change people's perspective, infuse positivity, which I'm a big fan of, in order for really any type of product or organization to thrive. And it's a challenge. I think there are so many disparaged brands, companies, organizations who just get tired and don't necessarily see the opportunity. Old brands can become new again. Consumers are in cyclical modes. They're always changing. You can reinvent almost anything. And some of the greatest challenges that I've had with brands are with brands that have perhaps seen their better day. And how do you turn that dynamic around?
Let's just say I called you and said, Arra, I've got some great students that are coming out, and we're looking to find great jobs for them.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of people are you looking for? What kind of skills are they bringing that when you meet with them, you go, that's the kind of person I want on my team?
So first I look at their heart. I think it's really important that they are good people, that they smile with their eyes, and they share that they really care. I think that's imperative. I can't underscore the importance of hiring good people and bringing good people into an organization. Second, I think is sort of the skill denominator, right? You imagine that if they've gone to a great school and they've had some terrific professors and maybe an internship here or there, or have worked professionally between levels of education, that they're probably pretty competent. But at the end of the day, it's you showing that you have sort of that extra added edge, that grit that makes an employer say, you know what, if I'm evaluating 5 people, the person who's shown that level of perseverance demonstrates perhaps the most promise long-term.
You've been working in marketing long enough to have seen the evolution from physical and now digital. Where we are now in 2024, and as we look forward to the future, what do you see coming on the next wave of this digital evolution and revolution? Well, honestly, it's not even a revolution anymore. It's where we are. But we see AI coming. That's one of the big ones that we're all focused on. What's coming? What's on the horizon? And what should our students be equipping themselves with to be competitive in the marketplace?
So I'm going to give you, again, a breakaway from the sea of sameness sort of answer. I think what's old is new again. I think, again, storytelling is really important to grasp the heart and souls of people. But if you think about the technicalities of the marketing world, it's changing as we're moving to a cookieless world. First-party data is incredibly valuable and important. And every CMO I talk to is terrified that as they spend their millions of dollars of marketing each quarter, that they're not making sound decisions on how to sort of build that marketing mix. So relying more on, again, first-party data, what people are actually seeing, doing, thinking. If you can find organizations that link the search activity to a purchase intent, that's golden. That makes you different from every other marketer who's still sort of finding their way. I think the dynamics of technical sort of trade desk-like marketing will continue to evolve, but great brands still have great stories, still have remarkable product, still have cachet that leans in to your heart and head, not necessarily only, the balance sheet sort of equation that most people find when calculating whether they're going to buy or sell or acquire a product.
Within our program, we recognize that there's been almost when you think of, say, trade school in higher education, that's almost been a dirty word. We don't want to be associated with that. And yet, within our program, we recognize that that's really what we want to empower our students to do. We want to teach them a trade. We want to equip them with the skills. We want to be practitioners and not just study academia and theory. You were at the University of Phoenix. You understand what it means to give people who are coming back to school a trade that they can turn into a career immediately. Can you talk about that connection between your academic journey, a student's academic journey, and then how they kick that off into something professionally successful right away?
Sure. So first of all, the journey to University of Phoenix, I think, is even more interesting in the sense that for me to have made that leap of faith to a brand that was tainted at the time was a real risk to my professional career. So I had, as an avocation, been the chairman of the board of the Red Cross in Silicon Valley and had been doing that for 4 years and turned one of 720 chapters who were all uniquely different into a powerhouse chapter by really leaning into the story that we as an organization could share. So I got a call from a recruiter one day who knew me from some of the work I'd done at the Red Cross, and she said, University of Phoenix is going through a transformation. It needs to be more purpose-driven and regain its soul. It had this wonderful mission when it was founded as sort of the finishing school for police and firemen, but over the years had gotten addicted to digital cocaine, spending $160 million or more on affiliate lead gen and hundreds of millions of dollars on Google ad search, but they had forgotten about the story and their why. So when I came in, I was actually quite saddened in the first 3 weeks and wondered whether or not I'd stick with it. But what gave me resolve was on about the third week, I went to one of our physical campuses at 7 p.m. and watched dozens of students, mostly women, moms who were in their late 20s, early 30s, probably had kids. Maybe there was a dad at home, fed them, did homework with their kids, and at 7 p.m. were going to school themselves for 3 or 4 hours. And I looked into their eyes and I saw this incredible desire to improve their life. And I asked them over and over again throughout the years I was there, what are you looking for? What are you striving for? And I remember presenting this at a board meeting, and they were expecting me to say, oh, they want to be, CEO or some glamorous position, which was sort of the input that I used to change our marketing approach. They just wanted to get better in life, the next step. In fact, I presented at a board meeting that our students are looking to get out of the crappy apartment they're in that has wall-to-wall carpeting and get hardwood floors. Their goal is to get hardwood floors. It's like the white picket fence of the 50s. And how do they do that effectively? By changing their life. So everything I did from that moment going forward was focused on connecting education to careers. How do you take a class that's not superfluous, but help you get the next best job in your organization? Be prepared for great jobs. And then I went around the country and spoke to CEOs and CMOs and CFOs and said, tell me, is there a skills gap in your organization? And of course, they all said yes. At the time, I think there were 20 million unfilled jobs and 2.5 million unemployed people. I said, well, why is there a skills gap? It's because people weren't prepared for the jobs that were available. So I begged these CEOs and leaders to help prepare these jobs at our companies, prepare the curriculum so that these students would be available then to work in these companies. And at the peak of this experience, we had over 100,000 jobs in our career portal. We're helping these individuals find their way by getting trained to take that next step. It was incredibly fulfilling. And yes, we got off that digital cocaine drug. We started connecting education to careers. It wasn't just blasting RFIs out there, getting people to fill them out and hope and pray they come in and take classes. It was about changing your life in a demonstrative, measurable way. I used to go home at night thinking, look, you can change your car, you can change your home, you can change your name, but the school you go to stays with you for the rest of your life. So as the chief brand steward, my responsibility was to ensure that the efficacy of that brand every day grew. And that's what drove me to do my job.
You just mentioned a very important word in our program, and that's brand and branding.
Mm-hmm.
So I love telling the stories of companies through branding, which is an experience, is what we talk about. It's a lot more than just a name or a mission statement. And again, I think that this ties together with personal brand and how each of us has to develop whatever that is based on our own powers and superpowers. What advice do you have for someone who is entering the workforce? They're frustrated because they've sent out resumes. They're not really getting much response. They're filing lots of applications, and they're trying to move into this new place in their career, as you mentioned. How can they tell their own story? How can they build their own personal brand in a way that's going to help them get those interviews and ultimately get the job that they're hoping for?
So I think it depends upon your stage of life. If you're new to the job market, I can tell you that most employers will ask what you did outside the classroom. So what volunteer experience have you had? What internships have you taken hold of? Where have you tried to step out of your comfort zone and take a risk? Where have you failed? Have those stories ready. Talk about the things you've done that have changed other people's lives. If you've motivated somebody to take action and they hadn't taken action before, or you've helped somebody in a demonstrative way and it's had an impact on their life, those are stories that employers are looking for because it really speaks to your character as an individual. It really helps them understand the type of person, remember, the person, who you are, that will be joining that organization. That connection is super strong. Ultimately, it trumps all of your academic experience.
Got it. Now let's talk about a company and building companies' brands, which is something that you've done so effectively. When I very first met you, I remember you told me that you'd been the CMO of One Medical, this transformative, fresh, unusual new organization that didn't feel like a medical organization. It felt like a health organization to me as an audience member. So give us Arra's golden rules of branding a company.
So it's funny, I guess when I joined One Medical, one of the reasons they came after me, and I was at University of Phoenix prior to, they specifically wanted somebody who hadn't been tainted by the healthcare system, somebody who was fresh and had new ideas. And one of the first insights I had is if you talk to consumers about health and care, they lean in. If you say healthcare, they say, don't talk to me, it's broken. So the importance of really understanding the consumer psyche will then help in how you position the brand. Now, when I joined as the first CMO, they were nascent in many markets. Technology was insane. The brand was incredible, but it hadn't really developed its own personality and tone. And when we sort of signaled into this concept of the doctor's office reinvented, and that change, that demonstrative change between what conventional wisdom was going into a doctor's office versus what we represented, created an ethos and a feeling that was quite unique. It's funny, I would ask our members about their experience. They wouldn't talk about, Dr. Joe or Dr. John. They'd talk about the experience of walking into a medical office and how fresh it smelled, and that there was lovely music playing in the background, and there was cucumber water waiting for you when you entered, and the artwork was bespoke, unique to the market that we were in. And then when you walked actually into the doctor's office, you sat next to them as opposed to across the table from them. So you had a conversation, not a versation. You had an opportunity to interact. They were empathetic. They asked about you. They didn't really talk to you. They spoke with you. I think it's a big distinction. And I captured then the essence of all that in how we grew the practice and recognized that we need to do the same thing everywhere to make people feel like they were part of something really special, part of a movement.
The word that keeps coming up to me as you're talking about these wonderful ideas is alignment. An alignment of vision, an alignment within the organization, an alignment between leadership and then workers, an alignment with the story and every piece of graphic design or radio spots or digital that goes out, creating this incredible culture is the word that a lot of people use, but really visionary alignment, which is so core to branding. Do you agree? And can you expound on this idea of how to create alignment across the board? And is that one of the jobs of a marketing team?
It's funny you say alignment. I use the word integration. So an integrated marketing experience has to be from soup to nuts complementary, not the same. Like many marketers will say, you have to hit them over the head 7 times with the same message to be effective. I think you can do it in different mediums, whether it's through digital, social, through television, radio, etc., short form, long form. The messaging has got to hit the same tone. And there are tricks to doing that, using mnemonics and just having sort of a tagline or an ethos that's articulated and referenced over and over again can be key, but ensuring that everything you do has some sort of connection at the end of the day with the overarching big brand idea is important. I also think it's really important to understand your brand's ambition. Where do you want to be? Where do you want to be in 3 years or 5 years? It's not necessarily this sort of lofty thing that's going to drive the way you think, but if you know where the puck is going, it'll help you guide the folks around you to remain inspired. It's so easy to get into that rut of doing your job the same way every day. But when you understand the impact you're having on people's lives and how you dimensionalize that, bringing either joy, bringing a solution, bringing a product, you can have great success.
In our classes, we talk about marketing and what that word really means. And we talk about how important it is that to be a marketer, you have to understand your market. It sounds really exciting to say, I'm going to sell my product to the whole wide world. But we also recognize how important it is to be specific and say, I'm marketing rugs at the rug market. I'm only going to go after people who are interested in rugs. I'm not going to try to bring people over from the flower market. If they want flowers, they should go to the flower market. So we're going to do marketing to that market. Could you talk a little bit, please, about how you go through the process of understanding what a market is? And do you agree or disagree about this concept of stay focused and know who you are and where you are and don't try to boil the ocean?
I mean, the simple answer is yes. It's very important to be focused. However, I think you can play along the fringe, the edges a little bit, because if you're an evolving product, brand, company, you're never going to stay the same. And the greatest leaders in business have repeated over and over again, as long as you stay hungry, as long as you recognize that there are always new competitors, companies sort of nipping at your heels, you'll evolve and change as the dynamics around you change. That doesn't mean fundamentally you have to shift your product from flowers to rugs or rugs to flowers. But if you recognize that there's an influence, for example, of new ideas, new technology that's going to impact the way your product is delivered to the market, you better be aware that that's happening. One of the greatest mistakes that I saw in sort of the marketing world was this lack of having a pushback culture in an organization. There was a great book that was written about the failure of Blockbuster by the COO of Blockbuster, who then went on to Dunkin' Brands. And he talks about the lack of pushback culture. He said, as we saw Netflix starting their journey, we just said, it's a passing fad. Let's just open more stores. And they ignored the fact that the industry had shifted. And as a result, they lost their way. But he said, understanding how the dynamics change within an industry will absolutely impact the way you think as a marketer. And it's very important to be in that conversation. You have to be thinking with, the strategy folks about where the puck is going in order to have impact longer term.
I'd love to ask you one last question, Arra, and thank you again so much. The thing that we always want to know from you, you've lived a bunch of life, had a wonderful family, had highs and lows, successes, failures, worked with lots of different people, seen lots of different strategies. For our students, what advice would you give? Is there one thing that you have that guides you, your guiding principle, that you could share with us that we could keep in our minds and hearts as we go forward?
So as a dad of 3, I've had lots of practice. My kids are 23, 19, and 14. And I teach them all the time to remain humble, but to be bold. I think it's really important to think outside the box and be courageous, because most people sadly live their life in fear. And marketers, unfortunately, are always the first on the chopping block if in fact things don't work well or don't perform. Please don't despair. The opportunity is there if you have a guiding light, if your value system is strong, and if the organization doesn't appreciate it, go somewhere else. Go somewhere where you will be appreciated. But I really believe being bold will help set you free and give you the juice to ultimately have the greatest impact on your community.
Arra, thank you so much, not just for your time, which is extremely valuable, but for all of this wisdom and for the way that you distilled all of these ideas in such a palatable and inspiring way for us today. I feel like every time I'm with you, I always learn something, and you've given me 20 or 30 new golden nuggets that I can't wait to reflect on and share in our program with our students.
Thanks, Joseph. It's been a pleasure working with you. You're amazing as well. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for being with us on this week's episode of Mediascape, and we'll see you in class. To learn more about the Master of Science in Digital Media Management program, visit us on the web at dmm.usc.edu.